expenditures, it would be either 1,300, 500. So if you look at 1,300 for VOTEC, and then you go to column 500, it is part of that 400, just shy of $440 million in tuition and debt service, anticipated debt service for the ACTF. Right now, that only incorporates 180,000 of what the prior year increase was. I'm sure there's going to be a discussion with the board, but any questions, I guess, on the presentation side?
Well, I would just clarify the point of the committee recommended a 0 to 1%. The committee recommended a 0%.
I would say that Brian recommended 1, and the other members recommended 0 with a consensus of 0 to 1.
The consensus was 0.
It was 0.
The consensus is 3 versus 1 board member.
Anybody have any other questions?
Can I just ask, have you done an analysis to find out how many houses are being built every year for Mayberry, and then what kind of tax revenue we can expect year by year going in?
I only know what we've been told through random sources, which is...
So you've never contacted them
No.
for a schedule?
No, we have not.
So you can analyze. Okay.
It's a very slow process right now.
So say we originally heard anywhere from 10 to 15 homes a year.
Tom, I thought I heard you say, if you don't mind me asking, I thought you heard you say that they were originally saying 500 homes, and now they're saying 200?
Correct.
Okay, good.
I believe they have 3 different phases for that. I know Harry spoke about a year ago at a Rotary meeting and shared that information, and I don't want to misrepresent him, but it is a slow process of bringing those homes in.
It'd be very similar to his other stone reform project of how the pace, the build process, they want to keep that. It's very similar to Mayberry.
Yeah, but when you talk about that document, so to clarify, it's still only going to be 200 homes total, right?
In this first phase, that's right.
Okay, there is another
He does have
phase?
He does have a few other phases
Oh, wow.
that he would like.
At the same areas?
In the same area.
Oh, so
Correct.
do you have any idea, sorry, I mean, stop on you.
I don't know how many total homes
You don't?
Mr. Sullivan,
Okay.
I'm unsure.
Okay. I didn't know if they said, look, this part of the land, you only allow 200 homes, that's it, or if they said, all right, you do phase 1 and then there's more over here, that's why I was asking.
Shouldn't we contact and find out? I mean, it affects us and in our planning.
Yeah, we can certainly contact him and ask him.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Those homes will only sell as quickly as.
Yeah, but they
are
have a
able to
plan.
build.
We can at
Yeah.
least know their plan of how many homes,
Sure.
how many phases, how many years.
Sure. Because there's an overall approval with your water management and all for whatever phases they have, because that had to be originally approved. And then, of course, they do phases. So you've got Stoner Farm over here that's still phasing out, correct?
Mhm.
All right, and then you got Mayberry over here. Is there any others that you know of?
Not that I know
In
of.
Germany Township, they've talked about it a lot, and out there by, past the car wash on the left-hand side, there's a field that they've talked about building houses there, and there's even plans, but I don't think it's gone through.
I was
Plans on 97 South, have been there for
What's
10
194?
years,
I'll
15
talk about
years.
194, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just
I'm
saying,
saying,
there's
plans all over the place for a bunch
Yeah,
of
that doesn't,
houses.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but anything's potential.
Jeannie, to add to that, I heard that they have perk problems over there.
Yeah.
That was a hang. And I guess if it doesn't perk, really not going to go.
Well, I'm not saying rely on revenue that's not there yet, but at least know their plan and their phases in the year, so we can at least say,
Yeah, I
we
agree.
know something's coming.
I agree.
Sure, I can call Barry.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tom. Okay, on to the agenda. All right, any questions, concerns about the board minutes? Okay. All right, because that's policy 903, 906. All right.
Are we gonna get a
give it, it's on this one.
I didn't see it.
And the 14th.
He's right.
Oh, there, I do see it, okay,
Right
thank
in
you.
the back, yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
He was unable to make it tonight.
okay, that's okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So, okay. All right, under property and supply, policy 610, the requires us to recommend a bid for approval for transportation. Situation is, we need to, either outsource buses or get more bus drivers. Complications that require on that are, one is, Carolyn said in her presentation on at least 3 different occasions, that it's cheaper to work from within than from the outside, as she's noted. So by us sending out, things are gonna get expensive. So what questions do we have on that for Tom? On the RFP
I
process?
guess my first thing is, everybody see the FPS slide that I highlighted, the transportation, what we're requesting in the transportation services. I guess that's the first question, because I highlighted that with the FPS committee. If not, I can review it here. There was about 6 or 7.
I mean, why don't you go over it through that?
Okay, so the highlight of the transportation services is, we're looking at a 5-year request, so 25, 26 through 29, 30. This would only be focused on regular education and athletic routes. We currently outsource our contracts for special education that end in 2027 and non-public runs in 2026. Anticipation would be to consolidate all those at the end in 2030 to 31. We have some requests of the contractor. The request is that they install all of our cameras and radios. We use PCCD money to buy new cameras, and we would like them to be installed on, if we would contract out buses, on those buses. They would also have to maintain secure newer buses with 10-year or newer vans. This would maximize our reimbursement back from the state, because they have trigger points after 6 years is a lower threshold, and after 10 years is a lower threshold. They would also be staged at our current bus lot, so the contractor would keep their buses on our property, hopefully saving costs on transportation mileage. They would also, since their buses would be there, they would use our transportation building, such as the bathroom, break room, security cameras, et cetera. They would have access to that. Since their buses and properties are on ours, they would be able to have an extension of those rights. And then we would also request that they give all current Littlestown drivers, both bus and vans, the first right of refusal on all open positions and interview them. That's the kind of the ask from the contractors. And then Littlestown, the district would like to maintain the authority over creating and managing all routes, so we can benefit the district and our students rather than the contractor maximizing their profits, and benefit our students and manage that better. We also are going to continue allowing fuel usage. We have that diesel we just upgraded for compliance. We currently let contractors use that, and they credit us back on their invoices. We would look to continue to do that. The same thing with gasoline. It also save us on having to request back from the state reimbursement of tax as we're tax exempt. We would also look at the sale of the fleet, if this would go through. We would pull that out separately and do that as a separate bid. That's kind of the highlight of what's in, it's about 20 pages worth of information.
And anybody have any questions on that?
I do, if you don't mind, Carl.
No, let's look.
All right,
Yep,
good.
yep.
Talking about them using the building, the maintenance building and the lot, what liability, liability-wise, insurance-wise, is that going to put the district in?
I already looked into that. That would be no change from a liability standpoint. We might actually reduce some of our liability because we don't own the buses. They would be responsible for the buses. We would just be responsible for essentially the pavement underneath of the buses.
In the building?
Yes, the building would still stay.
So they weren't required to have insurance on the building, we are?
We would have insurance on the building. We would still be our building. They would just be able to go use the bathroom and the break room in between shifts and whatnot. We would still maintain all rights to the building. They would just have to have to see Laura, the transportation director, discussion and her next meeting.
So I think what you're saying, Mr. Sullivan, is if the bus breaks down, who's fixing it and where? Is that what you're?
No,
So
actually,
thinking of.
I was more worried about, should something bad happen, let's say they back a bus in there and burn the building down, then the district's gonna end up using our
Well,
insurance.
they wouldn't be in the that's what I'm saying, the bus wouldn't even be in there.
Oh, but I mean, anywhere near it, or let's say somebody vandalized them on our lot, or what's our liability, should that happen?
So that would be, if they vandalized it now, it would be the same
Well,
liability.
yeah, but we own it, I mean, now we have a contract. No, we don't own the buses, I mean, we don't own the.
It would fall through them, we would just assist in assessing what vandalism happened
Okay,
and what
okay.
scope. We wouldn't be reliable for the vandalism.
Yeah, because it concerns me because, as you know, every time you make a claim with insurance, our insurance rates skyrocket, obviously, that's why I'm asking.
So essentially, we would insure the land underneath the buses, and they would insure the buses, so anything that happened with the bus would go through them first. Anything that happens to the building would be ours.
So they wouldn't be repairing the buses,
No.
you know, if they would have taken this place up.
Correct.
So the buses would never be in our building, or
Okay.
should never be in our building.
Correct.
Okay, got it, thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what kind of numbers are we looking at?
Brian, I wish I could tell you.
You have no idea, what kind,
Until
who
it's
around
approved.
us, you know, hires out?
We, districts,
Yeah,
we,
And look
us
at
and
the-
Southwest are the only ones that have currently in-house operations.
okay,
That's
then
better.
what does Henderson pay? They gotta be
Yeah.
close.
One of the things that we were tasked with that's really difficult is Laura took a look at, Mrs. Mace took a look at a number of different contracts. There is no one contract that looks exactly like this.
Sure, I get that, but you can still, yeah, you
I
can get a
would
pretty
say
good
that-
idea of what we'll be looking at.
I would say the other uniqueness is because we already currently outsource 2 different contracts. They, I should say, other districts do a one-stop. They can't pinpoint what's regular versus special versus non-pub to give us a good number to go off of. They say, here's our total, but we're only looking at doing a piece of that right now. When we get to 2030, 31, we would then be able to say, this is what other districts of our size have paid, and we could use that. That's some of the uniqueness in this current scenario that we're kind of faced up against. We can't really get a good semblance of what that would cost us.
But it's probably more than what we pay to maintain our fleet and drivers.
When we first looked at it, we were looking at, it would be the way we've structured this to try to mitigate the district's costs, having them use our lot, use our fuel. We're hopeful that it'll be somewhat to what we're currently budgeting for operations, at least for initial.
And can you, Tom, explain how this will affect the people that will be running the buses and or driving them?
You mean our current employees?
Yes.
So that would
As
be,
opposed to the contract.
that would be if the district would choose to go with them to outsourcing. The company who the board would award would have to then interview those employees for their positions. The employee would then be able to go through their interview process from there.
Can you speak up, please? We can't hear you.
So the interview process would be up to that contractor. They are required to interview our employees and give them the first opportunity for the interviews.
Dwayne, that information was on page 7 in the packet we got.
Well, the reason I ask is because I was out getting something at the store one day and I ran into one of our bus drivers. I'm not gonna name his name, but he was very upset about us going to a contractor. He said that Frederick County originally wanted a contractor, now they're back to their own buses. I don't know the details on that, but that's what I was told by him. And he was a really nice guy, and I'm like, well, I really don't know where to go with it. I mean, the problem we're having is we've got to raise their pay so we keep them, and then we got Peasers and everything else, and I know you said we paid, and quote me if I'm wrong, 1.4 million now, roughly, is what we're paying. You said it would, you at the time said it would probably equal out.
That's still the anticipation that we would think so, but we won't know. The opportunity for the board is to, if, we'll just give a scenario, the vendors would provide us with a high estimate. The board can continue as is with what our current operations are. We still have the fleet, we still have at least 11 personnel here at the district and contractor services to supplement that. To continue forward, we can always reassess and relook at that at a future time, or we can assess to say if we want to address the staffing issue in a different aspect rather than contracts. That's something the board can do when we look at what numbers we get back.
When we first realized that this was going to be something that we would be exploring, we sat down with the bus drivers right away. Mr. Schobaker and I went out and process that we've talked about has really kind of followed that same course that we've talked about since the beginning. We value our bus drivers that we currently have. They do a tremendous job with our students, and we recognize that. That's why we want to make sure that whatever vendor we would hire takes a look at them and keeps them. They desire to keep working with our students and our bus in our district. So we want to make sure that we provide vendors with that upfront knowledge right away.
And you said our buses will stay here, so they don't have to like go to
Correct.
Springboro to get a bus. So
Correct.
if they all wanna stay, they.
So that saves the district money. That doesn't charge, the vendor then doesn't charge mileage from wherever that driver's home is to the lot.
Is there any more questions?
I have a question, Carl.
Okay.
Ms. Ressler said page 7. I don't think I have that document, or never got it.
It's on the
Oh,
agenda.
okay,
It's on the
so-
agenda.
Agenda.
When you hit
Okay.
the link.
Under drivers.
The link
Yeah, I'll have to-
on the agenda.
Okay, but I didn't get a chance to review that.
That one is a different, will be the reference of what we're requesting the contractor.
Any other questions? Or need some time to read that?
When you guys talked with the bus drivers, were they in favor of this? Did you get a mixed?
There were mixed feelings back and forth from what I recall. They understood the reason that we would be looking at the request for proposal due to district costs and saving money and where we were with individual runs and contracting that out. But we sat down with them, and I felt that it was a good meeting that we had. We all shared, we talked, we had a good conversation, and mixed reactions. Some felt really good, and they said, I don't want that Piecers money going to Piecers. I want to be able to use that Piecers money and let me invest that. And this would provide that for them. Others said, I really like Littlestown. I want to keep working here. And we said, we want you to keep working here.
The big hang-up, part of the complexities and complications, is the Piecers. Most of the bus drivers, I think, if not all, are above 65 years old, so they, contributing to Piecers, where they can't even get the long retirement from Piecers is for 7 years? Oh, 10 years now. So they'd have to drive till they're 75 before they would even get a penny back that's been put in their name. So,
And there's no way that we can.
and that's the law.
They can't opt out.
I know.
Now,
That's
if
the
there's a way to
unfortunate
get us, be able to opt out on that, we would probably make every school district in the state of Pennsylvania happy, because they could probably get some bus drivers. So, but we've been fighting this one for how long is it? So, okay, any more questions on that subject? Okay, on to the next one, under the, some priorities. This falls on the priorities of legal protection advice. This is B, approve the contract, the continuation of the legal services for Saxton and Stump. I can't think of a whole lot of complexities or complications in this, but what questions do we have?
Carl, I read the contract. Just for clarification, if David Walker wouldn't mind, it appeared to me that the rates stayed the same, and then down below, they went up.
They went up for the following year.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. Our firm's practice is we're hired at the will of the board, so every year we send an annual engagement letter that establishes the terms and conditions of representation for the next fiscal year. We typically send that letter in May, but here, since the law firm Stock and Leader, all of us are in Saxton and Stump, and we needed to have an engagement immediately with Saxton and Stump, we thought we would put it all into one letter for the remainder of this year and accomplish our annual renewal as well. That way, it only has to come to you guys one time as opposed to 2 letters in 2 months.
Okay. The next one is under our policy of contracts and priorities. Recommend approval of water treatment plant. It's normal policy. Anybody have any questions? I don't see any issues or complications or complexities to that one.
It's an annual renewal.
Just an annual renewal. The Dodgers, per policy, not questions to that one? Okay. Our donation falls under policy 702. Anonymous, we won't thank them. And then the payment of invoices is policy 600 and 900. And the treasurer's report falls in our policy. Any questions or concerns or complications on any of those areas? On to the personnel report. Per policy, we have to approve these resignations. The only one that I see as a complication is Matthew Braden, a math teacher, because leaving a little early. I don't think we're having any more basketball after April 1st. So, that's that one. Does anybody have any questions on those three? Okay. Under D, policy 300 says staff hires. We need to approve that one. Pending the clearances, any clearance or the pending clearances done? Have we gotten them back yet, or?
Vanessa hasn't given me an update.
Okay, so by Monday?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions?
Are we gonna be replacing the kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Garvin?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Oh, sorry.
We're not there yet.
I thought we were doing all of them then, okay.
Well, we're on it now.
Okay. But John was with us before, right? For a brief period, like,
He was on and then came off. He had some personal circumstances.
but he had clearances then before, didn't he?
He was still working through them, I think.
Okay.
And now he had to re-pick back up where he left off the last time.
Okay, that's what I was concerned with. Okay, now to see, policy 300, Ms. Garmin.
I just want to acknowledge that Miss Garmin won an award as a kindergarten teacher. Remember that a couple years ago?
She's amazing.
So I was a little shocked with this one, but
Yeah.
Well, complexities we have, are we replacing?
I
Are we
know.
replacing her?
We're keeping her, we will be replacing Mrs. Martin.
We were replacing a kindergarten teacher.
okay, I hope they're award winning.
We'll do our best.
Is
There's
there
a
any
lot of
other,
them out
is there
there.
any other questions?
Come alongside and help.
Under D, policy says we're gonna screw the event workers. I don't see any issues. Anybody see any complications? They're all current employees of those. Under the athletic director, the volunteers for 906. For pending one, Brittany Steele. Oh, that was,
So if the board recalls, we did have a little bit of a complexity with that. We had a request to be part of Minithon and a chaperone at Minithon. All clearances were provided. It was a special situation, and the information came to us about a day after our board meeting. I think the board may have received that email. Policy does allow the superintendent to approve that pending approval at the next board meeting. So I was able to provide Brittany Steele with a letter letting her know and confirmation that she could attend Minithon. She was approved for that event, and it was pending this board approval. So she was at Minithon, and I believe it was a very good success.
and I'd like to see, like Mr. Healy here, who just came on board, and now he's volunteering in the athletics and wrestling, so that would be nice. Mr. Moran is under 916 volunteer status. It says that Tammy Sterner is approving that one. Anybody see any problems there? Okay. And then under policies, we have to approve these 4 drivers for Lincoln. I don't see any problems with that.
Yeah, Carl, can I ask a question about that,
Sure.
if you don't mind? I've noticed we've been approving a lot of Lincoln contractor drivers. Is this bringing more on, or are these just subs?
Yeah, the board is required to approve all drivers.
Okay.
They can change drivers.
Okay, that's cool. That's all.
So in other words, it looks like they're having problems too if we're replacing them.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. That's why I asked it. Thank you, Tom.
So, whether that RFP will be the same thing. Okay. Judy's got an overnight stay, which policy says we gotta approve it. Any problems, complexities, questions? All right, policy 300, we have to approve the leave of absence without pay. The problem with this one and the complexity is, it is a cafeteria worker that has no time off. They have to, the only way they get it is this way, so. This is our, what, 4th time in 4 months?
Yeah, it's.
Probably more.
Yeah.
So I might, with this, we might have to have each
Executive.
policy review a way to correct this, so that we don't need to bring this up when these people aren't even being paid, so that might be something we need to look at real hard.
How many hours do we work, Joey?
2.5.
2.5 hours.
It's 10:45 to 10:15.
Or during the lunch.
Yeah, so, correct.
Cafeteria monitor.
Yeah, they monitor the cafeteria,
Yeah.
they just don't have any time.
Yeah.
And then, roll J, an expulsion waiver, does anybody have any
That's
questions?
actually expulsion hearing waiver, right?
That's acceptance.
So
That's
there- it's a hearing
It's
waiver.
everything. It's a hearing waiver and acceptance of terms.
Right, because it sounds like they're waiving getting,
They're waiving the right to a hearing.
right.
Which, after we get to the last one, please. But that's under policy 200. And then the last one for this little section is policy 300, sabbaticals. We have respiratory health and professional development. They're very complex. Does anybody need anything on those? If they would, they'd be an executive session, so.
But I like how you're acknowledging each policy that it goes with.
That's what we're changing. We're sort of changing things up just a little.
Well,
to bring
you're
it-
reading stuff too, so I'm a little confused because normally it's the committee chairs. So I'm like, I feel like I'm getting lost.
Ray
And
gave
trying-
us a little bit of advice, and I'll try to explain. He's trying to let us attach everything to it to come at a different angle, so that the public knows what we're doing it, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. And I'm glad you picked up on the fact that we're picking up a different angle, and that's what we're trying to do it. Next time, those guys are gonna have to do it, and the same thing, that they're gonna have to pick the
Oh,
policy.
in the committees.
In the committees is where it's gonna go to, and anytime as the board, we're gonna do the same thing. That Nick and Steve will be doing it the same thing.
So you're just leading.
So you're gonna start
Leading-
acknowledging,
As
you're
example.
gonna start acknowledging them on the actual agenda, like in the left-hand side or within that thing, or?
We haven't discussed that part yet. I'll be honest, I have a cheat sheet today.
It might be helpful.
I think it would be very helpful if they had to do it themselves, but,
Job security.
knowing what policy it falls under and where it falls under and all that
I
is
do
something
like
that
that. I
is
do.
very helpful, so.
Yes, it is very helpful. Yep.
And that's where we're at, so. But my cheat sheet stopped because somebody didn't finish with the last part, so, per policy, we have to
You
review.
had the
it.
agenda, you could have done it yourself.
No, we just discussed this today. We literally just discussed it with Ray today. Under our policies and abilities to, keeping things up, we're under the curriculum, co-curriculum part. Being more, up to date with our policies and changing them if required. And this follows our priorities that the board set, since we took over, going with PSB policies. So, does anybody have a problem with section A? Okay. I don't see any questions, I don't see any complexities in that. The next one is another priority as part of our graduation requirements. So, we'll put that. Complications, do you want them, any complications?
What, letter B?
Yeah,
B, we're on B.
actually,